I can still picture that day vividly. The moment my parents sat me down in the living room to talk. I was only 7, dressed in my favorite purple butterfly-covered dress, clutching my old teddy bear as they carefully explained that they would no longer be living together. Their voices were calm, steady, almost rehearsed. There were no arguments, no raised voices, no broken dishes. Just two adults who had quietly fallen out of love, making a practical decision to go their separate ways. I didn't shed a tear. Maybe I was too young to fully grasp the weight of their words. The separation was handled with surprising order. Mom stayed in the house, Dad moved into an apartment, and I ended up with 2 rooms, one in each home. The custody arrangement was straightforward, alternating weeks with each parent. And, as always, Dad ensured that Mom and I were financially comfortable. A year after the divorce, Dad introduced me to Rebecca. I still remember that first meeting at a small diner, where she sat across from me with warm eyes and an easy smile. Beside her was her son, Ethan, casually playing with his French fries. "Hi, Olivia." She greeted me, her voice soft and inviting. "Your dad has told me so much about you." Ethan glanced up from his plate, his curiosity evident. "Are you gonna be my sister?" I liked them right away. Rebecca wasn't overly cheerful or pretending to be someone she wasn't, unlike some of Dad's previous dates. She felt genuine. And Ethan, 3 years younger than me, quickly became the little brother I had never known I needed. Around the same time Mom started seeing Daniel. He moved in not long after, and something about Mom changed. She seemed preoccupied, her mind elsewhere, often resting a hand on her stomach when she thought no one was watching. They had a simple wedding at Central Courthouse, and just 2 months later my half-sister Sophia was born. I remember standing in the hospital room, watching as Mom cradled the tiny pink bundle in her arms. Daniel hovered close, his attention fixed entirely on them. I stood back, shifting uncomfortably, feeling like an outsider peering into a family portrait where I no longer belonged. That same year, Dad and Rebecca got married. Their wedding felt different. Ethan and I weren't just guests, we were included in every part of it. Rebecca even let me help pick out her dress. And during the ceremony, Dad's vows weren't just for his new wife. They were for us too. "Today, I'm not just marrying Rebecca," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm gaining another child to love. And together, our 2 amazing kids are becoming part of a bigger family." That night, after the celebration, Rebecca tucked me into bed in my room at their house. She kissed my forehead gently. "You know, Olivia, I always wanted a daughter," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me be part of your life." I hugged her tightly, already knowing that even though my family situation wasn't traditional, at least in this home, I truly belonged. Things at Mom's house shifted after Sophia was born. There were no outright arguments, no cruel words, just a slow, quiet fading. I felt like I was disappearing, becoming less and less present in my own home. Mom quit her job to focus entirely on Sophia, and before long, everything revolved around the baby. At first I tried to brush it off. Of course, newborns need extra care. But as time passed, I began to notice the little things, small oversights that gradually turned into something more. I still remember that one rainy afternoon, standing outside my school, watching classmates leave with their parents after a parent-teacher conference. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Thompson, waited with me for nearly an hour before finally calling my mom. "Oh God, was that today?" Mom's voice crackled through the phone. "I'm so sorry, I was at Sophia's Mommy and Me class. Can we reschedule?" But we never did. That day, Daniel came to pick me up instead. He barely acknowledged me, too busy on his phone, deep in a conversation about work. Then there was my 10th birthday. I woke up brimming with excitement, rushing downstairs, expecting at least a simple happy birthday. Instead, I found Mom in the kitchen, completely absorbed in cooing over Sophia. "Mom," I said, hesitating in the doorway, "do you know what today is?" She glanced up, her expression distant. "Tuesday," she guessed. "Oh, I need to take Sophia to her doctor's appointment." My stomach sank. "It's my birthday," I reminded her quietly. Her eyes widened in realization. "Oh, Olivia, I'm so sorry. We'll celebrate this weekend, okay? There's just so much going on with Sophia's checkup today." But the weekend came and went. No party, no cake, not even a mention of my birthday. After that, spending time at Dad's house just felt easier. Rebecca always made sure the pantry was stocked with my favorite snacks, and Ethan and I spent hours together, whether it was battling each other in video games, working on homework, or just hanging out. Dad never missed a single school event, and Rebecca was right there beside him most of the time, cheering me on, snapping pictures, and smiling at me like I was truly her daughter. Slowly, almost without realizing it, I started spending more time at their house. Days turned into weeks. Weeks stretched into months. And at Mom's house? It felt like I was nothing more than a background presence. Mom was always occupied with Sophia, feeding her, playing with her, scheduling playdates. Daniel would come home, drop a quick kiss on Sophia's forehead, and then retreat to his home office, vanishing for the rest of the evening. Some nights I genuinely wondered if I could disappear entirely and no one would even notice. After nearly 6 months of me staying at Dad's almost full-time, he made the decision to make it official. "I spoke to your mom today," he told me one evening, his voice calm but firm. "It just makes sense for you to live here permanently. You're already here most of the time, and I let her know I'll be stopping the alimony payments since I'm taking care of you full-time now." A few hours later, Mom was suddenly at the door, wearing an expression of concern I hadn't seen in years, her voice filled with warmth that felt unfamiliar. "Sweetheart, I've missed you so much," she gushed, pulling me into a hug that felt rehearsed, not real. "I've been thinking a lot, and I want to go back to how things were before. I want you home with me, half the time, just like we used to." By then I was 12, old enough to see the truth behind her sudden display of affection. It wasn't about missing me. It was about the money. The loss of Dad's financial support was what really mattered to her. Sophia, on the other hand, didn't bother with fake niceties. By the time she was 5, she had already learned how to twist the knife. She would follow me around the house, her little face smug, waiting until Mom and Daniel were out of earshot to strike. "Daddy says you're not really part of our family," she taunted one afternoon as I sat at the kitchen table, trying to concentrate on my math homework. "He says you're just visiting." I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around my pencil as I forced myself to ignore her. But she wasn't done. "Mommy and Daddy love me more than you," she continued, her voice sing-song and sweet. "Last night, Daddy told Mommy he was tired of you being here. And Mommy said, just wait until she turns 18, then the money stops and she'll be gone." It hurt. Of course it did. But by then I had already learned how to protect myself, how to build walls around that kind of pain. I had Dad and Rebecca, who treated me like I truly mattered. I had Ethan, who was more of a sibling to me than Sophia ever could be. Still, hearing your own mother counting down the days until she could finally be free of you? That kind of betrayal leaves scars. The years dragged on and eventually I made it to high school graduation. Sitting at the ceremony, I found myself caught between two versions of my life, Dad, Rebecca, and Ethan on one side, Mom, Daniel, and Sophia on the other. The divide between them had never felt more obvious. After the ceremony, Dad pulled me into a tight hug. "We're so proud of you, Princess." His voice was full of warmth, full of love. Meanwhile, before we had even made it out of the parking lot, Daniel had already shifted the focus to the next step. "So," he said, jingling his car keys, "have you started packing yet?" Not a single question about my college plans. No excitement about the business program I had been accepted into. Not even a vague attempt at pretending they cared. All that mattered to them was when I'd finally be out of their way. 2 weeks later, I packed my things and moved into Dad's house for good. I remember sitting in the living room, my acceptance letter in my hands, feeling nervous about asking for help with college, even though I knew, deep down, that Dad would never say no. "Dad, I got into the financial analyst program," I said hesitantly, turning the envelope over in my hands. I was awarded a partial scholarship, but before I could even finish my sentence, Dad and Rebecca exchanged a knowing look before smiling. Rebecca reached for a folder and slid it across the table. "We've already got it covered, sweetheart," she said gently. "We started saving for your college fund when you were 8. That summer I worked at the Golden Bean Cafe, putting away every dollar I could. My shifts were mostly in the mornings, which meant I had the afternoons to spend with my real family. Ethan and I went to movies. Rebecca taught me how to cook simple meals for when I moved into my dorm, and Dad remained the steady, reassuring presence he had always been. Always there with advice, a listening ear, or a comforting hug whenever I needed one. Mom never called to ask about my college plans. Never stopped by to check in. Never even asked how I was doing. And for the first time I realized I didn't need her to. By the time I was preparing to leave for college, it had become painfully clear. My mother didn't seem to care. Not once did she ask about my plans, my dorm, or how I was feeling about this new chapter of my life. But by then I had stopped expecting anything from her. College life was a whirlwind of new experiences and unfamiliar faces. My dorm room was small but comfortable, and my roommate Hannah was friendly enough, though we never became particularly close. Between lectures, studying, and my part-time job at the campus cafe, my days blurred together, leaving little time for anything else. Still, I always made sure to call Dad and Rebecca at least twice a week. They visited whenever they could, with Ethan in tow, grumbling about carrying my laundry basket yet never failing to bring my favorite snacks from home. Mom never called. Not once. When my 19th birthday arrived, I knew better than to expect anything. But hope is a stubborn thing. I still checked my phone that morning, waiting for a text that never came. Later that night, despite knowing it was a mistake, I found myself scrolling through her Facebook page. There it was, a carefully curated collection of pictures showcasing her perfect life. Mom, Daniel, and Sophia at the beach. Sophia's dance recitals. Holiday dinners, family vacations, weekend outings. Every post brimming with sentimental captions about cherishing family moments and grateful for my loved ones. I wasn't in any of them. It was as if I had been erased from her world, cropped out of the picture long before. That realization hardened something in me. I buried myself in my studies, determined to carve out a future that had nothing to do with her approval. The years slipped by faster than I had anticipated, and before I knew it, I was crossing the stage, diploma in hand, officially a financial analyst. Dad cheered so loudly it was almost embarrassing, his excitement rivaling that of a parent watching their child win Olympic gold. Not long after graduation, Rebecca approached me with an opportunity. Her brother, Jonathan, owned a successful capital group back home, and she had mentioned my academic achievements to him. The interview with Jonathan was professional yet comfortable. He had Rebecca's way of getting straight to the point while still making people feel at ease. As he reviewed my resume, he gave me a measured look. "Your credentials are impressive," he admitted. "But I need to be clear. Being my sister's stepdaughter won't earn you any favors here. You'll have to prove yourself like everyone else." "I wouldn't want it any other way," I responded without hesitation. I got the job and moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment close to the office. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I threw myself into work, taking on projects no one else wanted, staying late to refine financial models, and developing strategic growth plans for clients. The results spoke for themselves. Client portfolios under my management saw significant gains, and as the firm's revenue climbed, Jonathan took notice. He wasn't one to play favorites, but he believed in recognizing hard work. Promotions, bonuses, and raises came, not because of family connections but because I had earned them. The first thing I did with my year-end bonus was buy gifts for the people who had truly been there for me. A brand new golf set for Dad, since he had been using the same clubs for over 15 years. A spa weekend for Rebecca, who never indulged in luxuries for herself. The latest gaming console for Ethan, since he was still playing on his old one from high school. Watching them unwrap their gifts, seeing their joy and genuine appreciation, I felt something settle in my chest. A sense of belonging, of certainty. I might have been erased from one family's life, but I had found my place in another, far better one. After 5 years of relentless hard work, I had a solid plan. Every month, I set aside a portion of my salary into savings. I had researched the housing market extensively, searching for the right property. Something cozy but comfortable, ideally with a small garden. Most importantly, I wanted to make a substantial down payment to keep the mortgage manageable. Then, out of nowhere, came the phone call that changed everything. I was at my desk, reviewing quarterly reports, when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. "Olivia, sweetie." Mom's voice was thick with forced sweetness. "I've been thinking about you so much lately." I almost dropped my coffee. 9 years of silence, and suddenly she missed me? Keeping my voice neutral, I asked, "How are you, Mom?" "Oh honey, I miss you." "We all do," she gushed. "Why don't you come over for dinner this weekend? Sophia's home from college and Daniel's making his famous pot roast." Curiosity got the better of me. That Saturday, I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, stepping out of my sleek yet understated Lexus, practical, reliable, professional. Sophia opened the door, eyeing me up and down with thinly veiled interest. "Nice car," she remarked, her tone unreadable. Stepping inside, I took a slow look around. The house hadn't changed much. The house looked almost exactly as I remembered, same furniture, same decor, same neatly arranged family portraits lining the walls. And just like before, I was nowhere to be found in any of them. Mom rushed forward, arms outstretched, acting as if we had just seen each other yesterday. "Darling, you look incredible," she gushed, giving me an exaggerated once-over. "So polished and professional in that suit. Daniel, doesn't she look successful?" Daniel gave a brief nod as he pulled out a chair for me. "We've heard you're doing very well at Jonathan's company," he remarked. "The family grapevine says you're one of their top employees." Throughout dinner, the conversation circled around my job, my salary, and my lifestyle. Mom casually slipped in remarks about how expensive things had become, especially with Sophia's college tuition. At one point, her eyes landed on my wrist. "That's such a stunning watch," she mused, reaching out to touch it. "Must have cost a fortune." I kept my smile polite. It was a birthday gift from Dad and Rebecca. Her lips tightened slightly, though she quickly masked it with a smile. "Of course it was," she said, her tone a little too sweet. "They always did enjoy spoiling you." That dinner was only the beginning. Almost overnight, Mom started inserting herself back into my life. She called frequently, popped up at my apartment without warning, always with Sophia in tow, and extended constant invitations to family dinners. Sophia, for her part, took an interest in my apartment, inspecting everything with a calculating gaze. "This place is kind of small," she observed one evening. "I thought you made good money." I kept my response vague. "It works for me." Mom naturally took the opportunity to chime in. "But surely you're planning to upgrade soon? With your salary, you must be thinking of something bigger." I just smiled and changed the subject. Something about their sudden curiosity about my life felt off. Then, one Sunday afternoon, everything became clear. Sophia had come over under the pretense of spending some sister bonding time together. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard her let out a dramatic gasp from the living room. "Oh my God," she breathed. I turned to see her standing in front of my laptop, eyes glued to the screen. My banking app was still open. I had just finished paying some bills. "Is that really how much money you have saved?" she asked, disbelief in her voice. I quickly walked over and shut the laptop. "It's not polite to snoop through other people's finances, Sophia." She ignored my reprimand, her expression still filled with curiosity. "Why are you saving so much? What's it for?" I hesitated for a moment but saw no harm in telling her the truth. "I'm planning to buy a house soon," I said simply. "I want to make a solid down payment so I can keep the mortgage manageable." Sophia nodded slowly, but the gleam in her eyes told me she was already calculating something. She left not long after, making a vague excuse about meeting up with friends. The very next day, Mom called. "Come over for dinner," she said sweetly. "We have something important to talk about." As soon as I sat at the dining table, I knew something was off. Mom had that same look she used to get when she was about to ask Dad for more child support. She handed me the bowl of potatoes, her voice casual but filled with meaning. "Sophia tells me you've been saving up quite a bit." "That's wonderful, honey." She paused, then added, "You know, college has been so expensive for Sophia. And soon she'll need an apartment after she graduates." I took a bite of my food, saying nothing. Mom continued, her tone thick with false warmth. "It would be so wonderful if her successful big sister could help her out. Family supporting family, you know." I placed my fork down carefully. "I'm not sure I follow, Mom." "Oh, come on, Olivia," she said, dropping the pleasant act. "You're clearly doing well for yourself. Sophia needs help with an apartment, and you have more than enough saved. It's only fair that you step up and help." I let out a quiet, disbelieving chuckle. "Let me get this straight. You think I should give Sophia my house down payment?" "Well, you're already established in your career," Daniel interjected, still avoiding my gaze. "Sophia's just getting started. She needs the support more than you do." I took a steady breath. I wouldn't call myself established. I've been working incredibly hard to build my future. And I'm not handing over my savings. Mom's expression darkened instantly. "So you're just going to let your sister struggle while you sit on all that money?" she snapped. "After everything we've done for you?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Everything you've done for me?" I repeated, tilting my head. "Like forgetting my birthdays? Ignoring me for years? Pushing me aside for Sophia?" Daniel muttered under his breath, his voice laced with disapproval. "You're being selfish. A real sister would want to help." I exhaled sharply, feeling something inside me finally snap. A real mother, I said, standing up, would have been there for both of her children. I'm taking care of myself first. Sophia is your responsibility, not mine. A heavy silence settled over the table. Mom's face was tight with anger. Daniel stared at his plate, and I could already imagine Sophia's reaction when she heard about this later. How her cruel big sister had refused to hand over her hard-earned savings. 2 weeks after that disastrous dinner, I left for a business trip to London. Jonathan had entrusted me with a high-stakes client presentation, which meant I'd be off the grid for the next 10 days. Buried under meetings, time zone differences, and a packed itinerary. Before I left, Mom called. Despite everything, I kept my tone polite, trying to maintain at least a shred of civility. I'll be out of the country for about 10 days, I told her. Just letting you know I won't be reachable. There was a brief silence before she replied, her voice oddly intrigued. Oh, overseas? How nice for you. Something about her tone made my skin crawl, but I brushed it off. The trip was a success, the presentation went off without a hitch, and I returned home exhausted yet satisfied. But the moment I switched off airplane mode, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of banking notifications. My heart pounded as I scrolled through them, fingers trembling. Account transfer. $95,500. My vision blurred. I raced home, barely able to think, threw open my laptop and logged into my banking app. There it was, an enormous transfer to an unfamiliar account. But the name attached to it? Margaret Collins. My mother. I grabbed my keys, rage pulsing through my veins, and sped toward their house. My phone was clenched in my fist, screenshots of the transaction displayed on the screen. The moment I pounded on their front door, Daniel answered, an infuriating smirk plastered on his face. Where is she? I snapped, shoving past him before he could block my way. Mom was in the living room, flipping through a magazine like she hadn't just committed grand larceny. Oh, you're back, she said casually, barely glancing up. How was your trip? I thrust my phone in her face, my pulse roaring in my ears. What is this? How did you get into my account? She barely spared the screen a glance. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, I hissed. I have the proof right here. An unauthorized transfer to your account. How did you do it? Her expression didn't even flicker. Instead, she set her magazine aside and smiled. Yes, fine, she admitted breezily. I transferred the money. Sophia needs an apartment, and since you weren't willing to help, we helped ourselves. My stomach turned. How did you even get into my apartment? I demanded, my voice shaking. She sighed as if I were being dramatic, then reached into her purse and dangled a key in front of me. Oh, honey, she said, sounding almost amused. Remember when I visited and borrowed your bathroom? It only takes a minute to make a copy. A cold wave of nausea rolled over me. Give me my money back. Now, I said, my voice dangerously steady. Or I'm going to the police. Mom let out a sharp laugh. Don't be ridiculous. You wouldn't turn your own mother in. She waved a dismissive hand. Besides, you'll earn it back in no time. You have a great job, no children, no financial burdens. Sophia needs this more than you do. We've already found her the perfect apartment, she added, as if that would somehow justify robbing me. I cut her off, my patience obliterated. I'm serious, Mom. Give me back my money or what? She sneered, leaning back lazily. You're going to send your own mother to jail? Please. You don't have the guts. Before I could respond, Daniel stepped forward, gripping my arm as he tried to force me toward the door. I think it's time for you to leave, he said smugly. I yanked my arm free, my expression icy. This is your final warning, I said. Give me back my money. Mom just smiled, her eyes full of condescension, and gave a little wave. Daniel shoved the door shut in my face. The police station was eerily quiet that night. Detective Carter sat across from me, his expression unreadable as I laid out my case. My hands were steady as I passed him the evidence, the unauthorized transaction, banking screenshots, text messages proving I had been out of the country. That night Daniel called. His voice alternated between veiled threats and desperate pleading. You need to withdraw the complaint, he snapped. Do you even realize what you're doing to your mother? She's crying, Olivia. I hung up without a word. Let her cry. I had spent enough nights crying over her. The legal process moved faster than expected. With airtight evidence and Mom's own arrogance working against her, there wasn't much of a defense. In court, she played the part of the remorseful mother, crocodile tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted to help my younger daughter," she sobbed to the judge. "I let my maternal instincts cloud my judgment." I nearly laughed out loud. Maternal instincts? From her? The judge wasn't fooled. "Mrs. Collins," he said coldly, "your so-called maternal instincts led you to commit premeditated fraud and theft against your own daughter. The only reason you are not facing prison time is due to your agreement to full restitution and lack of prior convictions." Mom received a suspended sentence and was ordered to return the entire amount within 30 days. To make sure they never pulled anything like this again, I secured a restraining order against both her and Daniel. Through it all, Dad and Rebecca never left my side. They sat behind me in court, brought me takeout when I was too drained to cook, and bless them, never once said "I told you so" about letting Mom back into my life. "You did the right thing," Rebecca reassured me after sentencing. "They needed to learn they can't take advantage of you anymore." Ethan, ever the light-hearted one, smirked. "Well, at least now you definitely know which family actually loves you." He wasn't wrong. On one side, I had my real family, Dad, Rebecca, Ethan, and even Jonathan, who had been incredibly supportive. On the other, the people who had shown, in the most unforgivable way possible, that they never saw me as more than a financial resource: Mom, Daniel, and Sophia. 6 months have passed. Every cent of my money is back where it belongs, growing in my account while I finalize my house hunt. I've set my sights on a beautiful 3-bedroom colonial with a fenced backyard, just 10 minutes from Dad and Rebecca's place. The mortgage paperwork is nearly done. And this time, I'm the only one with keys. Mom still tries to reach me through distant relatives, old family friends, even acquaintances who barely know me. She claims she's changed, that she's sorry, that she wants to make things right. But I'm done. I won't waste another second on people who only see me as a bank account to drain. Yesterday, I had dinner with my real family to celebrate my soon-to-be home. As we sat around Dad and Rebecca's dining table, laughing, teasing each other, making plans for my housewarming party, a quiet truth settled over me. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you're born into. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from toxic people. In 2 weeks, I'll be signing the final paperwork on my house. Dad's already planning to help me paint the walls, and Rebecca keeps sending me furniture ideas for the living room. This is what family should be: people who support you, who love you, who would never dream of hurting you for their own benefit. As for Mom, Daniel, and Sophia, they can keep their staged family photos and manipulative games. I have something far better: a real family, a clear conscience, and a home with one set of keys belonging to me and me alone.